It's been 3 days since I've left the apartment. The takeout boxes are breeding on the couch, monuments to my inability to function. His favorite mug, the one with the stupid cartoon sloth on it, is still on the coffee table. The coffee inside is a fossil now, a dark, cracked ring at the bottom. But it's the silence that's killing me. The apartment is half empty, and the space where his things used to be screams at me. His ridiculous collection of cookbooks, the worn-out armchair he loved, even the ugly throw blanket he insisted kept the draft out, all gone. It's like half of my life was surgically removed without anesthesia. My thumb is raw from refreshing his Instagram, a pathetic repetitive motion that changes nothing. Blocked. Of course I'm blocked. My texts are a sea of unanswered green bubbles. My calls go straight to voicemail. I know I messed up. God, I know. But the regret is this thick, suffocating fog, and I can't see the exact moment everything shattered. How did it get this bad? How did we get here? I was just pushing him to be more for us. Wasn't I? I remember the beginning so vividly it feels like a movie I could just rewind and play again. We met at a dog park. My chaotic golden retriever, Jasper, had decided Sean's meticulously packed picnic basket was a personal challenge. I was mortified, apologizing profusely as Jasper tried to make off with a whole sandwich. But Sean just laughed. It was this warm, genuine sound that made the frantic barking of a dozen dogs fade into the background. He was a pet nutritionist, he told me, so he understood the unshakable logic of a hungry dog. He spent the next hour not just charming me, but completely winning over Jasper with a calm expertise that was mesmerizing to watch. He was gentle, that's the word that keeps replaying in my head. He was gentle in a way I'd never experienced. He listened, truly listened, remembering offhand comments I'd make and bringing them up weeks later. He learned exactly how I liked my coffee after the first try. On the third date, when I was crippled by menstrual cramps, he showed up at my door not with flowers, but with a hot water bottle, painkillers, and a bar of my favorite dark chocolate. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He just set it down, gave me a soft kiss on the forehead, and said, "I figured you might need this." But then the poison started to seep in. It always does with me. It started subtly during brunch with my friends. They'd talk about their partners, lawyers, finance guys, tech bros, discussing promotions, bonuses, company cars. I'd listen, a knot of something ugly and familiar tightening in my stomach. It was the same feeling I got as a kid, when my parents would sigh and talk about how my cousin Rebecca had won another math competition or gotten into a better summer camp. It was the feeling of being behind, so I started doing it, the thing I swore I'd never do. The first time it felt almost accidental. We were driving home from one of those brunches and I said, "You know, Ashley's boyfriend just got a huge promotion. His firm is sending them to Hawaii." I glanced over at him. Sean was just driving, his brow furrowed slightly. "That's nice for them," he said, his voice even. "My job isn't really like that, it's more steady." "I know, but don't you ever want more? Something with a bit more ambition?" The word hung in the air, ugly and sharp. He was quiet for a moment. "I love what I do, Ophelia. I help animals. I get to see them get healthy because of my work. That feels like enough." I dropped it, but the seed was planted. I told myself I was just encouraging him. I was helping him see his potential. But looking back now, sitting in the deafening silence of our empty apartment, I know what it really was. It was panic, my panic, and I was making it his problem. That first comment opened a floodgate. Soon, the comparisons became my go-to conversational tool, a cruel little habit I couldn't shake. It was never direct, always couched in the language of suggestion or just thinking out loud. It was, "My dad was saying how much money there is in tech right now. Have you ever thought about a career change?" Or, after a friend's party, "Did you see how easily Mark was talking to everyone?" It's such a useful skill, networking. I'd even critique his body, patting his stomach and saying with a fake sweet smile, "Maybe we should start hitting the gym together." Daniel from my office has a six-pack. It's honestly incredible. Each time, a little light would go out in Sean's eyes. He never got angry, not in the way that would have let me feel justified. He'd just get quiet, he'd absorb the blow, and a tiny wall would go up. I knew I was hurting him. A part of me, the sane part, screamed at me to stop. But the panicked, insecure little girl inside, the one who was never good enough for her parents, was convinced that if I just pushed him hard enough, he'd become bulletproof. And if he was bulletproof, then I would be too. We'd be safe. No one could look down on us. The conversation that should have been my final warning came on a Tuesday night. I was scrolling through social media and saw that my cousin Rebecca, the golden child, had just gotten engaged to a surgeon. The ring was enormous. The picture was perfect. I felt that old, familiar acid churn in my stomach. I tossed my phone onto the couch. What's wrong? Sean asked, looking up from the book he was reading. Nothing. It's just Rebecca's getting married to a surgeon. Oh, he said, good for her. Yeah, a surgeon, I repeated, the word tasting like jealousy. It must be nice, to not have to worry about things. He put his book down and looked at me, really looked at me. His expression was tired. Ophelia, we need to talk about this. You do this a lot. Do what? I asked, already defensive. This, he said, gesturing vaguely. The comparing, the implication that what I am isn't enough. He took a deep breath, and for the first time, he let me see the real wound. My dad, his whole thing was potential. I had potential, but I was never living up to it. Every report card, every soccer game, every piano recital was met with, that's good, but you could have done better. He thought he was motivating me, but all he did was make me feel like I was fundamentally broken. Like my best would never be good enough. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. It took me years of therapy to stop hearing his voice in my head. To accept that I'm allowed to be happy with who I am right now. I love my life, I love my work, I love us. He reached for my hand. But when you say those things, it's like I'm a little kid again, sitting at the dinner table, trying to explain why a B+ is still a good grade. I cannot hear that from you, Ophelia, not from the person I love. Tears streamed down my face. I felt a wave of genuine, gut-wrenching shame. I pulled him into a hug, burying my face in his chest, and apologized over and over. I promised I would stop. I promised I would be better, and I meant it. In that moment, I really, truly meant it. But the sickness inside me was deeper than a single promise could cure. The breaking point came at a friend's barbecue. It was one of those perfect late summer evenings, string lights twinkling in the backyard, the air smelling of charcoal and cut grass. I was already on my second glass of wine when Sean texted to say he was running late. An emergency client, a frantic owner whose new puppy had eaten something toxic. Be there as soon as I can, I promise, he wrote. I should have been proud, that's who he was. Dedicated, caring, the person people trusted with their beloved pets. Instead, all I felt was a prickle of annoyance. I was left alone to navigate the small talk, to field the inevitable questions about our life. For 30 minutes, I listened to our friends, Catherine and Robert, go on about closing on their second property, a charming little cottage upstate they planned to rent out. I nodded and smiled, the wine buzzing in my head, that familiar, ugly knot tightening in my gut. Then Sean arrived. He rushed in, looking apologetic and a little stressed, his hair slightly disheveled. He came straight to me and kissed my cheek. Sorry I'm late, the little guy's going to be okay, thankfully. The words just came out of my mouth before I could stop them. They were slick with wine and coated in years of insecurity. I turned to him, my voice loud enough for Catherine and Robert to hear, and said with a bright, brittle laugh, well, look what the cat dragged in. It's our hero of the animal kingdoms. Sean froze. He looked at me, a confused smile faltering on his lips, but I wasn't done. The poison was in my bloodstream now, and it had to go somewhere. Honey, you will not believe what we were just talking about. Robert and Catherine are buying a second house. A second one, isn't that amazing? I didn't wait for an answer. I put my hand on his arm, a gesture that was meant to look affectionate but felt like a claw. Maybe you should think about that next time you're saving a puppy. They don't exactly pay you in mortgage down payments, do they? Silence. It wasn't a normal lull in conversation. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket that dropped over the entire patio. Catherine's smile vanished. Robert suddenly found the pattern on his paper plate fascinating. I saw the moment the words landed on Sean. It wasn't just that he looked hurt. It was like watching a beautiful piece of glass shatter in slow motion. His face went completely pale. The warmth, the life, the gentle kindness that was the very core of him, it all just vanished. He didn't look at our friends, he didn't look at anything else, he just looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something I had never seen before, nothing. Just a vast, empty expanse of disappointment. The love wasn't just gone, it had been annihilated, and I was the one who had pushed the button. The 10-minute drive home felt like a cross-country trip through a vacuum. The silence was a physical presence, pressing in on me, making it hard to breathe. I kept trying to fill it, my voice a frantic, pathetic squeak. I was just joking, I started, the words sounding hollow even to my own ears. I'd had a little too much wine, you know how I get. I say stupid things. He didn't even glance at me. He was a statue carved from disappointment, his eyes fixed on the road, his jaw set so tight I was afraid his teeth would crack. I could see the reflection of the streetlights gliding over his face, illuminating a stranger. When we got back to the apartment, the tension followed us inside, clinging to the air like humidity. He didn't slam the door, he didn't throw his keys on the counter. He moved with a chilling deliberation, placing his keys down softly, taking off his jacket and hanging it neatly in the closet. I followed him, a ghost in my own home, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Sean, please, I begged, my voice cracking. Please just yell at me, scream at me. Anything is better than this. He walked into the bedroom and I trailed behind him, a sense of dread coiling in my stomach. He went to the closet, reached up to the top shelf and pulled down a suitcase. He laid it on the bed and opened it. The click of the latches echoed in the silent room. That sound will haunt me for the rest of my life. It was the sound of a door being locked forever. What are you doing? I whispered, the question a useless puff of air. He finally turned to look at me and his face was a mask of calm. It was the terrifying calm of a deep ocean, the kind that hides unimaginable pressure beneath. There was no anger, no rage, just a profound and unshakable sadness that seemed to have settled deep into his bones. I'm leaving, Ophelia. No, I choked out, stumbling forward. I grabbed his arm and he flinched. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, but it felt like he had slapped me. I let go as if I'd been burned. No, you can't. It was a stupid, horrible joke. I'm sorry. I am so, so sorry. The tears came then, hot and panicked, blurring his image into a wavering shape of the man I was losing. Please, Sean. Don't throw 5 years away for one stupid comment. He began pulling shirts from the closet, folding them with a strange, detached precision. One comment, he repeated, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. Ophelia, that wasn't a slip of the tongue, that was the truth finally coming out in public. That was what you really think of me. He stopped packing and faced me fully. My father spent my entire childhood telling me that I wasn't good enough. That I was a constant source of disappointment. He thought he was motivating me, building me into something better, but all he was doing was sanding me down to nothing. He took a ragged breath. I have spent the last 10 years of my life in therapy, in self-help groups, reading books, doing everything I could to escape his voice in my head. To build a life where I could finally feel proud of myself, I thought I had. He looked at me and his eyes were filled with a final, devastating clarity. I thought I had found a home with you, a place where I was loved for who I am, not for the potential of who you wanted me to be. He shook his head slowly, a gesture of infinite weariness. I escaped that house, Ophelia. I will not live in another one. I cannot survive it. He zipped the suitcase. The sound was brutal, final. He walked past me, not even brushing my shoulder. I just stood there frozen, a statue of my own making. I listened to his footsteps fade down the hall, the jingle of his keys, the front door opening, and then the soft, final click of it closing behind him, sealing me inside my self-made prison. And now I'm back where I started, in the silent apartment surrounded by the ghosts of a life I set on fire. My texts remain unanswered, a long, desperate monologue sent into the void. My calls go straight to his voicemail, and I've left so many rambling, tear-soaked messages that his inbox is probably full by now. In a moment of pure, undiluted panic, I called Catherine. She was there, she saw it, maybe she could talk to him, explain. Her voice on the phone was different, strained, cautious. Oh, hey, Ophelia, she said, the usual warmth in her greeting replaced by a hesitant formality. Catherine, I started, my voice already breaking. I messed up so bad, can you please just talk to him, tell him I'm sorry. There was a long pause. Listen, Ophelia, she said finally, her tone deeply uncomfortable. I don't think I should get in the middle of this, it's really between you two. It was a polite, brutal dismissal. She wasn't taking my side, she wasn't taking his. She was stepping away from the wreckage, and in doing so, she showed me just how toxic I had become. Defeated, I hung up. I wandered through the apartment, touching the things he'd left behind, trying to feel something, anything. My eyes landed on the old tablet we shared, the one we used for recipes and watching movies in bed. I picked it up, my fingers swiping through the screen out of muscle memory. I opened the web browser, not knowing what I was looking for. A trace of him, maybe, a clue, and I found it. The last page he had opened was still loaded. It was a local jeweler's website, a page for custom designs. On the screen was a simple, elegant men's wedding band. Brushed platinum with a thin inlay of wood. It was understated, strong, and beautiful. It was so perfectly him. My heart stopped. And then I saw the project name saved in the corner of the design tool in small, unassuming letters. For S and O the plan. The air was sucked from my lungs. A sound tore from my throat, something raw and animalistic. He wasn't just with me, he was planning a future with me. A whole, beautiful, committed future. While I was busy chipping away at his confidence, he was quietly designing a symbol of his forever. That discovery broke the last thread of sanity I had left. I created a new Instagram account. A blank profile, no picture, a meaningless username. A ghost account for a ghost of a person. It took me 3 seconds to find him. He hadn't made his profile private. I expected to see sad quotes, angry rants, or maybe just silence. What I saw was so much worse. It was a photo posted just yesterday. He was on a hiking trail with a group of friends, the sun filtering through the trees behind them. He was smiling. It wasn't a forced, polite smile for the camera. It was a wide, genuine, unburdened grin. He looked younger, he looked lighter, he looked free. And that's my hell now, sitting alone in the dark, the glow of the screen illuminating my tear-streaked face. My thumb, raw and trembling, hovering over the screen. I just sit here, refreshing, 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 watching the man I destroyed learn to live again, in a world that is so much brighter without me in it.